As promised yesterday, I'm going to talk all about what it means if you have a character with ability scores below 10 and therefore your bonuses are negative. Are they bonuses in that case? Let's talk all about this today. I really have this fun topic. It was suggested by my good friend Nif, although it came up in a conversation where she sort of made some comments and we were discussing it with a group of other DMs and so forth and players, where a DM was asking, because they were sort of new to 5th edition, they've played before with other series and such, but this was new to them, and they were wondering, because they had a character ask, like they literally rolled their ability scores without a single score above 10. All 8s, 7s, 9s, and I think they even had a 6. So like every one of their ability scores was below average and would have negatives on their characteristics. I can't, for me, I can't even fathom wanting to play that character. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I know I would be able to make it fun because I can probably do that with just about any character. The thing is, what I always feel like Dungeons & Dragons is mostly about is like the heroic story. And with that, there should be at least, you would think, one skill, one ability, not skill, those are separate, one ability that's over 10, that in fact, that is like 15 or better. In fact, most DMs that I know, they pretty much won't let you play a character unless you've got at least 115. Now, maybe that's a little harsh. Maybe they would let you play it, especially if you have a good reason. And that was sort of my perspective to this person asking about, well, should I let someone play this character with all these negative scores? I would want a really good reason to allow that character in the party, not because of the player. I'm sure the player is probably going to have a good time and make up some interesting character. My thought was more about the other members of the game. The other players in the game are probably going to have to carry on some level that character. That character is, I don't see any way, this is just me, I don't see any way that a character like that could not be a burden on the party. So if that's the case, what do we do with our stats or our ability scores, whatever you like to call them, that are negative, that are, your sub-average, your below-average scores? This is a fun question. If we imagine 10, of course, is what we consider the average. Like a standard human, just an average Joe human, is going to have 10 across the boards in all of their abilities. And on a certain level, like a peasant or a farmer or just a common person, a commoner in this game, is going to have like average scores, right? All across the board. So is that the kind of character you're gonna play as a hero in an adventure game? It doesn't make sense. Why would that person become a commoner? Now, if you can come up with a great story and justify it and everyone else in the party is on board, I'm all for it. I want to take some examples of 1 score, maybe 2 scores in negative, what that might mean, and let's take a look at that and how we can bring that into a character and make them work and approach it in a way that is engaging, interesting, and doesn't break the party. So if you have a character that has a very low score in something, let's take strength first. Let's say they have a low strength. Low strength is okay. It means you can't carry a lot of gear. Okay, fine, there's ways to get around that. You can have a cart. You could have someone help you if you need it. Or you could just not carry around lots of gear. Let's face it, you're certainly not going to be the most reliable person in a brawl. However, you could manage. If you had a 6 in strength, even that would be a challenge, but it's manageable. One way to think about the low scores is to look at something like intelligence, right? Oh, it's easy to play low intelligence characters. A lot of people use it as a dump stat. Sure, there's truth in that. In fact, if we talk about Critical Role, obviously the vlog yesterday, Critical Role is kind of on my mind, and it's also just something that a lot of people are familiar with. From the first campaign in Critical Role, we had Grog. Grog had a 6 intelligence. Travis Willingham, the player, is a very intelligent guy, and he was a skilled actor, and so he was able to convey Grog's low intelligence in a charming, convincing, believable way. That's important. Like, if someone is let's call him a dummy, you have to be able to play that in such a way that it is, at the very least, not a problem for the party. Doesn't mean you're a complete ignoramus and you can't function. It doesn't mean you necessarily can't talk. Maybe it does mean that you can't read, and that's kind of fun to engage in. Here's the thing. In this game, animal intelligence is starts at 3. So like a dog or something is going to have an intelligence of 3. Dogs are pretty smart. They can remember basic, simple routines and tasks. They recognize, obviously, faces, scents, or whatever we want to call them. They recognize individuals. There's a certain element of intelligence that they have that they're able to bring forward. And they don't have what? They don't have language that we understand. They can communicate with each other, obviously. So there's something to be said about that. So with a 6 intelligence, you're slightly more intelligent than an animal, of course. So we could also look at that in all of the other stats. You know, if you have let's say you have a 6 or 7 in your charisma, it could mean one of two things. It could mean that maybe you're really badly scarred, or maybe you're deformed. Maybe the body of your character is deformed, and people perceive that as ugly, hideous, or just difficult to deal with. It's obviously going to affect how you interact with people. That's what charisma is all about, right? It doesn't necessarily mean you have that kind of a disability. It could also just mean you're a big jerk. You don't talk to people nicely. You're rude and obnoxious, and you downright rotten person to be around. See, there's 2 different ways at the least. In fact, there's probably lots of different ways you could play a low charisma. And this is true on every stat. Let's say you have a 5 in dexterity. You basically would have to play yourself as a bumbling, oh my goodness, a buffoon on a certain level. Clumsy oaf is a simple way to say it. You're not quiet. You can barely keep your feet on the ground. In fact, you probably fall all the time. You're bumping into things, and it's almost like you're playing that sort of slapstick comedian role. It could be lots of fun, even though it's a challenge. So the negative bonuses, or they're not even bonuses, what do we call them? Detriments or something? I don't know. The negative scores on your abilities, it's going to be okay. And you certainly can manage it. There's lots of great ways to approach it. I think the key is to tie that low score with something of meaning for your character. Like, answer this question. What does it mean for your character? And then, back to our original example, this character that has every score as a 9 or lower, what a challenge. It could be done. If I was the DM, I would want to know, why did they become an adventurer? And I would want to make sure it's okay with the rest of the party. 1 stat is negative, we can handle that. It's fairly easy. 2 stats, tricky, but still manageable. If it gets beyond that, we might want to think about re-rolling our character. Let me know about your best negative stat. What's your dump stat? Let's talk a little bit about that today. How do you manage those low scores and all of those things and more? We may have a special guest tomorrow. If not, for certain, before we get to 365, there's going to be at least one more guest here on the DnDaily vlog. This was DnDaily vlog number 359, which means 365, 1 year of daily D&D and RPG vlogs is just around the corner, only a few days away. If you enjoy Dungeons & Dragons and TTRPGs as much as I do, take a few minutes, check this video out next, and I will see you at a table someday. Keep rolling 20s until then, and remember, it's your game. Play your way.